How many people actually buy these foldable phones? Apparently enough, because they keep making them. And this is the brand spanking new Oppo Find N5. Quite possibly, and probably, the best foldable you can buy right now. It's also the first major launch of a foldable globally in 2025. So we've got the 8 Elite, we've got a bigger battery, it's thinner and lighter. Actually, this is the thinnest foldable book style phone you can get. So rather than doing my normal flagship battery test with regular phones, I wanted to find out how this new N5 compared to the rest of the current foldables. So let's get the timer started. I'm using the Vivo X200 Pro, the winner of my regular flagship battery test. And starting at the top left, we've got the OnePlus Open, which now is a couple of generations old compared to everything else on the table here, but it is the predecessor to the Oppo Find N5, near enough. So I'm kind of curious to see how the N5 stacks up. We've also got the Galaxy Z Fold 6, we've got the Vivo X Fold 3 Pro, on a Magic V3, which I think is my current favorite foldable, although we'll see if the N5 takes over from that, and of course the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Obviously there are other foldable devices out there. I don't have anything on the table from Huawei just because it introduced too many variables. I'd have to download app APKs, and also the trifold, do you include that or not? So maybe I'll come back to that in a different video. So all phones have the latest software, it's set to 150 nits of brightness, running on Wi-Fi only, background apps closed, and I'm doing a combination of the inner and the outer screen to sort of reflect everyday use. And kicking off with a quick Geekbench 6 test, as usual in these tests, the Pixel is way out in last place with its Tensor G4, which actually falls behind the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 that we have in the OnePlus Open. The Find N5 is the only one with a new 8 Elite chip, the new flagship chip, although it is a slightly lower core version to accommodate the size and the power efficiencies. But still, this new chip comfortably beats the 8 Gen 3, 8 Gen 2, and the Tensor G4. Surprisingly, there's no MediaTek Dimensity options in any of these flagship foldables here, which is a bit of a shame because it performs extremely well in the regular Oppo and Vivo phones. Anyway, cracking on with the battery test, and all phones have 100% battery health. They haven't been used for more than a couple of weeks. And I'm going to go through a variety of social apps, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We're going to play a low demanding game, Temple Run, and a high demanding game, War Thunder, as well as shoot some 4K video, and then see which one loses and which one wins. It's interesting that I do have to switch between the screens because I'd say most people spend the majority of the time on the cover screen, the outer screen, but obviously you then have that big, beautiful tablet screen on the inside. And it's interesting to see the size difference. The Fold 6 looks kind of small next to the Find N5, which I think is the biggest on test here, with its 8.12-inch tablet screen and 6.62-inch outer cover screen, which also packs in a huge 5600 mAh battery, although the Vivo does have it beat at 5700. The smallest on test is the Fold 6 at 4400. So it'll be interesting to see if Samsung, through optimizations and what have you, can still compete despite having a much smaller battery. I mentioned the Huawei trifold, the XT. Would that be fair to include, even though it has 3 screens rather than 2 and also costs about 50% more than these guys? Maybe next time, because it is getting a global launch. Have a look at this. I used my thermal imaging camera to see how hot the phone's got, and I put the peak temps on the left there. And amazingly, despite the N5 being the thinnest on test, it's also the coolest, by some margin actually. So, at the 3-hour mark, we're starting to see the OnePlus Open at the top left and the Pixel 9 Pro Fold at the bottom right falling behind the rest of the pack a little bit there, which is not really surprising. Those are the two I expected to fall back, and currently the N5, despite, as I say, being the fastest, being the coolest, and also the thinnest, is in the lead with 76% remaining. That is incredible actually, although Vivo is very close behind. That could go either way. Place your bets now if you haven't already. Also, for the first time in one of my battery tests, I'm doing an app side-by-side test for an hour. We've got Google Maps here, we've got YouTube, because obviously a Fold with its big tablet screen, you're quite likely to use some split-screen multitasking. What you're also going to do is feel that crease in the middle, and every generation we've seen improvements to the design, more subtle creases, and while actually all these on test are pretty good, I found that the Fold 6 and the Pixel Fold have probably the most obvious, the most noticeable crease. They're also the only two without this kind of anti-reflective coating we have on the other 4, which does make a difference, as you can see with my studio spotlight here shining on it. In terms of which has the best crease, and by that I mean the most subtle, the most minimal, I would say it's the new Oppo N5, and it's noticeably slimmer, less wide than the OnePlus Open, but the Vivo and the Honor are also very good here. Right, so at the 6-hour mark, we've got a couple of phones in the yellow territory now. Things are starting to get a bit spicy on the table over here. if you know what I mean, in terms of a battery rundown test. But rather than boring you all to death, let's jump ahead to the first death, shall we call it. And just after the 7-hour mark, War Thunder was too much for it, and the OnePlus Open kicks the bucket first. 7 hours 9. Is that a good score? I'm not sure. Let's see what everything else does, although compared to regular flagship phones, that would be pretty poor. That would have actually come in last place compared to my regular flagship test. But then, about 25 minutes later, we lose the Pixel. Not really surprising, 7 hours 33. It has beaten the OnePlus Open, but also that's 2 years old. The Pixel 9 Pro is maybe 6 months old. I kind of expected it to do better. And consistently in these tests, when it comes to performance and battery life and heat as well, the Pixels are just not very good. It's really frustrating. But it's not the worst, and only 10 minutes later, we lose the Honor Magic V3. I thought that would perform a little bit better, if I'm honest, but there we go, 4th place, leaving us with 3 phones. And these seem to be in a whole different league because it takes another full hour for the Galaxy Z Fold 6 to run out of juice at 8 hours and 46 minutes. That is a big difference coming from the Magic V3. Meaning it's a 2-horse race, but I think the odds-on favorite now are with the Oppo, because at the 9-hour mark exactly, we lose the Vivo X Fold 3. Really, really good performance from the Vivo there, and actually one of my favorite foldable phones. But it does mean we have a winner, the Oppo Find N5. This is an absolutely incredible phone. So at least from my testing, it does seem that regular flagship phones, you know, your rectangular copy and paste chocolate bar size phones, will genuinely give you better battery life than a Fold. But that's because generally they have bigger batteries, and also they just have, you know, one display rather than 2. So in last place, the OnePlus Open, but this is also the oldest on test, and I still have a special place for that in my heart. I really love that phone. Next, we have the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, which is a huge upgrade over the original Pixel Fold, but still in many ways does fall behind the competition. Then we have the Honor Magic V3, which was my favorite folding phone of 2024. Then the Galaxy Fold 6, which is probably the most popular Fold that people buy just because it's Samsung. So it's a very good phone, but probably not the one I would buy. For me, it's between the Vivo and the Oppo, which helpfully are also the top 2 phones. Vivo gets the silver, Oppo get the gold. The N5, the Find N5 here is just incredible. It's the thinnest book style foldable you can get. It has the most minimal crease. It's the fastest. It was the coolest in terms of those peak temperatures. Really, really nice camera setup, and I'll cover this more in my full review, but it's basically borrowed from the Oppo X8. And by a country mile, it won this battery test. Not too shabby. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you've got any feedback, any other phones you'd like me to include next time, drop a comment below. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ding that bell and all those annoying YouTuber things. And I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.